ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतः पदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। वेलकम ऑल ऑफ यू ऑल। Welcome all of you all for our weekly Bhagavatam chapter-wise overview classes. So last week we had begun chapter 9, which is a very important chapter, the passing away of Bhishma Dev in the presence of Lord Krishna. We discussed till verse number 24. We are going to start from 25, but just a quick recap of what we have been discussing in this chapter. So this chapter begins with the Pandavas, Yudhishthir and everyone, they go to meet Bhishma Dev because Lord Krishna, Vyasadev, everyone has been trying to convince Yudhishthir to rule the kingdom, but Yudhishthir feels that I am the cause of the killing of so many people. He is not convinced. So this time the Lord wants to give credit to Bhishma Dev. What I couldn't do, now Bhishma Dev is going to convince Yudhishthir. So he wants to give more credit to Bhishma. So Prabhupada gives this example, just like a father wants the son to be more glorious than him. So Krishna wants the devotees to be more famous than him. So Yudhishthir along with Dhaumya and his brothers and Lord Krishna, they all go to meet Bhishma Dev. And how do they go? They all go dressed very royally because they understand that Bhishma Dev wanted to see them in his, at least in his final moments as a royal king. So they all go dressed very royally, and Bhishma Dev is lying there. And to see Bhishma Dev in this last moment and to hear Bhishma Dev speak his realizations, all the greatest sages from all over the universe, they all assemble there. Parvat Muni, Narad Muni, Bharadwaj, Parshuram, Vashishta, Gautama, Atri, each one of them are such great personalities. So we discussed in detail, a little, not in detail, but in short about each of these personalities. The detail is given by Srila Prabhupada in the purports. So all these great personalities come to meet Bhishma Dev. Even though Bhishma Dev is not dressed like a sage, but they all have such great respect for Bhishma Dev because he is a great soul, a Mahajan. So after seeing all of them, Bhishma Dev very affectionately welcomes all of them according to time, place, circumstance. Even though he is in the bed of arrows, he still has that culture of welcoming everyone, at least smiling and welcoming everyone. And then he starts to worship Krishna. And after worshipping Krishna, the first thing that Bhishma Dev does is, because Krishna brought Yudhishthir and the Pandavas here, because Lord Krishna wanted Bhishma Dev to convince Yudhishthir. So Bhishma Dev, he starts to speak his realizations and he starts to pacify the Pandavas. So he says, Aho kashtam aho nyayam yad yuyam dharma nandana jivitum nartha klishtam vipra dharma achyutashraya. What kind of sufferings you all have gone through? Even though Krishna is with all of you all constantly, still you have to suffer so much. And then Bhishma Dev says, probably you all should have been killed long back, but because you all were protected by three personalities, Vipra, Dharma, Achyutashraya, protected by Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, by Dharma and by Krishna, nothing has happened to you all. And then Bhishma Dev laments the suffering of Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, that she suffered doubly. Initially she suffered because of the loss of her husband, and then she suffered because of the actions of her children. And then Bhishma Dev says, what is the reason for the Pandavas to suffer? Sarvam kala kritam manye bhavatam cha yad apriyam. The only cause is time factor. And Prabhupada mentions this time factor refers to Krishna. Otherwise, how can someone like the Pandavas suffer? Pandavas, we saw this verse, Yatra dharmo suto raja gadapanir vrikodara Krishno stri gandivam chapam surit Krishna tato vipat. The Pandavas, Yudhishthir himself is Dharmaraj. They have Krishna personally with them. Arjuna is the greatest archer. Bhima is the greatest club fighter. Still, they had to suffer so much. So Prabhupada mentions that they had the best of spiritual resources, the best of material resources. Still, they had to suffer. That means there is nothing to be lamented. If you remember, we read this one statement. Prabhupada says, when things are beyond your control, there is nothing to lament. Just understand that this is Krishna's plan. So in this way, Bhishma Dev tells Yudhishthir, you don't lament, it's not your fault. It had to happen. Krishna made you the instrument to get his things done. And then Bhishma Dev says, just accept Krishna's plan. Nahi asya karhichit rajan umam veda vidichitam. So he says, even great philosophers, even great demigods are not able to understand Krishna's plan. How can you and I understand? So Prabhupada, the point that he wants to make is, when we see a devotee is suffering is not because of karma, it is because of Krishna's plan. Krishna has a certain plan for a devotee, so you cannot compare a devotee suffering with that of a non-devotee suffering. So that's what Yudhishthira is saying here. Even great philosophers cannot understand Krishna's plan. So the best course is just accept, don't try to argue, don't try to even try to understand, just surrender to Krishna's plan. And Bhishma Dev says, my dear Yudhishthira, you have suffered all this while without any fault of yours. You have accepted it gracefully. Now that same Krishna wants you to enjoy and be the king. Accept this also as Krishna's mercy. You accepted suffering as Krishna's mercy. Now you accept enjoyment as Krishna's mercy. For all of us, the logic is different. We can easily understand that happiness that comes is Krishna's mercy. But very difficult for us to digest that suffering is Krishna's mercy. But Yudhishthira was at a different level. Suffering, it took it as Krishna's mercy, but happiness, the kingdom that is coming to him, is not ready to take it. So Bhishma is trying to tell Yudhishthira that this kingdom, this throne that has come to you, this is also Krishna's mercy, accept it. Now all the citizens are waiting without a king. Please get on the throne and become the king and take responsibility and serve all the citizens. And then Bhishma Dev, from verse number 18 onwards, he begins to glorify Krishna. Eshavai Bhagavan Sakshat Adyo Narayana Puman. He says, this Krishna, he is the supreme person of Godhead. Bhagavan Sakshat Adyo Narayana Puman, the original source of Narayan. And here he is coming as one of the family members of the Vrishni just to bewilder us. And then Bhishma Dev says, who can know Krishna? Knowing Krishna is very difficult. But great Mahajans like Shiva, Narada, Kapila know him to some extent. So what the point that Bhishma Dev is trying to make here is, one can understand Krishna through great souls. And Bhishma Dev is one such Mahajan who is glorifying Krishna. And then he says, out of your ignorance, you have been considering Krishna as your friend, well-wisher, but he is the supreme person of Godhead. So I think somewhere till here we discussed, and then Bhishma Dev explains that how Krishna is there in everyone's heart, and Krishna is equally disposed to everyone. But still this Krishna, even though he is equal to everyone, this Krishna has come specially for Bhishma Dev. Why? Because Bhishma Dev is his pure devotee. So Krishna is equal to everyone, but still Krishna has special affection for his pure devotees. And then Bhishma Dev, this verse number 23 is a very important verse. So someone may say Krishna came to Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev was a very pure devotee. Will Krishna come to us also? So Bhishma Dev is saying here, Bhaktya aveshya mano yasmin vachayan nama kirtayan tejan kalevaram yogi muchyate karma karmavi. So Bhishma Dev says, yes, Krishna will come to you also. How? Bhaktya aveshya mano yasmin. If your mind is absorbed in pure devotional service, in Krishna's thoughts, vachayan nama kirtayan, and you're always glorifying Krishna, chanting Krishna's glory, Krishna will come to you also. So we are not reading these pastimes in Bhagavatam just to understand that Bhishma Deva was a very special case. Definitely he was a special case, but these stories are there in Bhagavatam to inspire us that if we follow in his footsteps, we also can attain such a destination. Krishna will come to us also. And then Bhishma Deva, out of this great humility, he is 100% sure that he is going to go to the spiritual world. There is no doubt. Bhishma Deva was like a great devotee. But still he is praying to the Lord, my dear Lord, you have come here. My prayer is, you please wait till I leave my body. So Prabhupada writes, this was the last verse that we discussed. So Prabhupada writes that Bhishma Deva, he is a very humble Vaishnava. He doesn't feel that I am definitely going to go back. He's feeling that I have so many anarthas, I've done so many offenses, I don't know whether I will go or not. He's requesting the Lord to please be there. And Prabhupada writes here, the highest ambition of a pure devotee. What is the highest ambition? What does Prabhupada say? What is the highest ambition of a pure devotee? Krishna Prem. But Prabhupada says that the highest ambition is the devotees want to remember Krishna continuously and especially at the final moment. This is the highest ambition. Bhishma Dev wanted this only, that Krishna be with him at the final moment. So this is where we ended. Okay? So now we will continue from text 25 on. So verse number 25. Sutta uvacha yudhishthirastad akarnya shayanam sharapanjare aprachat vividhan dharman rishinam chanushranvatam. So after Bhishma Deva glorifies Krishna a little, he turns to Yudhishthir and he starts to speak about various duties to Yudhishthir, because Yudhishthir is asking Bhishma Deva. So basically, Bhishma Deva was a storehouse of lot of, not even knowledge, lot of wisdom in all fields. He was like an expert in, not only in spirituality, he was an expert in ruling the world. Sri Dharma was a great personality. So Bhishma Deva, if you all know Mahabharata, when Bhishma Deva was born through the union of Ganga and Shantanu. As soon as he was born, and when Ganga was going back to the heavenly world, Shantanu Maharaj tells Ganga, you please take this boy and let him get the best of education. So Bhishma Deva is taken to the heavens, and Brahaspati, the guru of the Devatas, he gives knowledge to Bhishma Deva. So Bhishma Deva is very, very knowledgeable. So Yudhishthir, Lord Krishna inspires Yudhishthir to ask a lot of questions. In Bhagavatam, that whole detailed discussion is not there. But if you open Mahabharata, you will find the whole discussion of pages and pages, verses after verses, where Bhishma Deva is speaking. So after Yudhishthir is inquiring about various aspects, Bhishma Deva starts to speak. What does he speak? Text 26. Purusha svabhava vihitan yata varnam yata shramam vairagya ragopadibhyam amnota bhaya lakshana. So at Maharaj Yudhishthir's inquiry, Bhishma Deva defined the varna and ashrama. 4 varnas, 4 ashrama. Brahman, the varnas are Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and the ashramas are Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. So he started to describe the qualifications, the qualities of personalities in each of these orders of life. And he described Vairagya and Raga. He described the process of attachment and detachment. Right? This whole process he explains. So Prabhupada, we will not get into the purports. So Prabhupada explains a little one paragraph about each of the varnas, each of the ashrams. So Prabhupada basically mentions that the qualifications of a Brahmana, right? The Brahmana is like very pure, he doesn't earn money, he doesn't work under someone, he just teaches knowledge like that. So Prabhupada is explaining the qualities of a Brahmana, to forgive, to distribute wealth and all. And then Prabhupada is mentioning the qualities of a Kshatriya. Kshatriya, he gives, Brahmanas accept charity, Kshatriya gives charity, but he never accepts charity. So the duties of a Kshatriya, how a Kshatriya is supposed to fight for the right cause, protect people. And Prabhupada explains the duty of the mercantile community, how the mercantile community, they are based on protection of cows and agriculture. Krishi, Go, Raksha, Vanigyam. And the Shudras are supposed to work under the other three varnas. And then Prabhupada mentions about ashrama. So the purpose of an ashrama, brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, ashram means where there is shelter. When one is taking shelter of Krishna, taking shelter of the higher principles. So in this way, Prabhupada is mentioning about the varnas and ashrama. Text 27. Dhana dharman, raja dharman, moksha dharman, vibhagasha, Stri dharman, bhagavat dharman, samasa vyasa yogata. So Bhishmadev explains Dhana dharma, duties of the acts of charity, the duties of a king, the duties of a woman. Even though Bhishmadev was like a brahmachari, duties of a woman and duties of a devotee, Bhagavat dharma. Everything briefly, extensively Bhishmadev explained. And then Prabhupada mentions here that Dhana dharma is the main function of a grahastha. And then Prabhupada mentions the principle of Dhan. Just like a river draws water and then the river distributes water also. Yeah, the well gets water and the well distributes water. So similarly, Prabhupada mentions here, everyone gets and everyone has to give also. Just like now the body, we breathe in and then we breathe out. So this is the principle of Dhana, right? So to survive, to be healthy, to be fresh, to be alive, you have to accept and then give. And then Prabhupada mentions in one paragraph, Rajya Dharma. So Prabhupada says Rajya Dharma is a great science. Not like the modern politics, it's a great science. And how the kings were trained not to be tax collectors. The kings were trained to be fathers or guardians of the citizens and to make sacrifices for the citizens. So it was like a big responsibility that the kings had. And in this way, Prabhupada mentions about Rajya Dharma. And then Prabhupada actually mentions about Rajya Dharma in 2-3 paragraphs. So Prabhupada mentions this. If everyone follows this, then you'll not have unnecessarily governments here who are exploiting people. And then Prabhupada is mentioning about Moksha Dharma. Right? Okay, I'm going to read this. This is like the third last paragraph, a very important paragraph. If you all have Bhagavatam, you all can refer this. Prabhupada explains very beautifully some of the sentences, statements of Prabhupada are very, very important. Okay. As far as salvation is concerned, you all are there with me? I'm reading this paragraph because it's very important. As far as salvation is concerned, one has to conquer the principles of lust, anger, unlawful desires, avarice and bewilderment. So if you want moksha, then you have to conquer lust, anger, everything. Without that, there is no moksha. And then Prabhupada says, to get freedom from anger, so one has to conquer all these things. How do you conquer each of this? Prabhupada is explaining one sentence, but each of the sentence will take a lifetime for us to follow. To get freedom from anger, one should learn how to forgive. Simple. To be free from anger, Prabhupada says, learn forgiveness. To be free from unlawful desires, one should not make plans. Desires will come, but don't make plan. Don't connect your intelligence to the mind. That's what Prabhupada is saying. You'll be free from all unlawful desires. By spiritual culture, one is able to conquer sleep. And then Prabhupada says, by tolerance, one can conquer desires and avarice. Disturbances from various diseases can be conquered by regulated diet. You can conquer disease by regulated diet. By self-control, one can be free from false hopes. Money can be saved. So Prabhupada is given formula for saving money. Money can be saved by avoiding undesirable association. Cut off your wrong association, you will save a lot of money. Right? By practice of yoga, one can conquer hunger. Previously, they were yogis, they would just breathe, or they would just take sun rays and survive, right, for months together. So, by practice of yoga, one can conquer hunger. Worldliness. What is worldliness? Attachments to the things of this world. How can it be conquered? By culturing the knowledge of impermanence. You understand everything in this world is temporary. Your attachments in this world will get reduced. Dizziness can be conquered by rising up. False arguments can be conquered by factual ascertainment. Instead of having false argument, you should know what is the actual thing. Talkativeness, prajalpa, can be conquered by gravity and silence. That's it. Be grave. By prowess, one can avoid fearfulness. If you are very fearful, you have to become strong and powerful, courageous. Perfect knowledge can be obtained by self-cultivation. So in this way, Prabhupada is saying, if you want liberation, moksha, dharma, these are the various things that you should follow. Each of the sentences is something that we can meditate on. And then Prabhupada mentions about Stri Dharma. The only thing Prabhupada mentions here about Stri Dharma is shyness. The quality of women should be shyness. In this way, Bhishmadev taught all this. And Bhishmadev also taught the process of Bhagavad Dharma in detail. How to practice bhakti, because he was a great devotee of the Lord. And then Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Dharma is very simple. Worshipping deity at home, serving the devotee, hearing Bhagavatam, residing in a holy place, chanting the holy names. That's it. This is the only thing that we have to do. So in this way, just 1-2 verses, but in Mahabharata there's a whole series of verses where Bhishmadev is expounding on each of these aspects, the various dharma. And then how does Bhishmadev explain all this? He explains all this with a lot of examples, citations from various scriptures. Just like an advocate proves his case by quoting different cases, different instances like that. Text 28. Dharmartha kama mokshamshcha sahopayan yata mune nana akya itihashesho varnayan asha tattvavit. So he described all these things by citing various histories from various scriptures. And then Prabhupada mentions here, for all of us, the Puranas, especially Mahabharata, Ramayana, are very, very important. So you have to understand this so that you can actually make proper arguments and you can explain. So in this way, as Bhishmadev was explaining all these things for a very long time, in fact it is explained that almost for some say 28 days, 40 days, every day the Pandavas would come, Bhishmadev would speak till evening and they would go back. So this went on for a very long time. So Bhishmadev had so much knowledge to give. And then finally Bhishmadev sees that the sun is entering into the northern hemisphere. That means not 1 day, 2 days, months, a month has passed almost. Text 29. Dharmam pravadatastasya sakala pratyupastita yo yoginas chanda mrityor vanchitas tutarayana. So while Bhishmadev was describing all these various dharmas, the sun started to enter into Uttarayana, the northern hemisphere. And Bhishmadev, because he had Ichha Maran, the power of choosing his time of death. So this is the time when generally a yogi would depart. So Prabhupada writes here in the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, Lord Krishna tells in verse number 24 that anyone who leaves his body during Uttarayan in the day, during the Shukla Paksha like that, he will get liberated. So Bhishmadev thought this is the right time for me to depart. So that time Bhishmadev, what does he do? He starts to focus on Krishna. The next verse is a very important verse. In fact, from 30 on, Bhishmadev's prayers start. Text 30. Tadopaham sritya gira sahasranir विमुक्त संगमनम आदि पुरुषे कृष्णे लसत पीतपथे चतुर्भुजे पुरस्थिते मिलित दृक् व्यधारयत्. So this Bhishmadev, this man, so Bhishmadev was a great personality who spoke on different subjects with different meanings. Bhishmadev, the person who protected thousands of men, this person who fought thousands of battles, he has spoken on thousands of subjects, fought thousands of battles, done everything. He stopped speaking. And then what did he do? With his eyes opened, he started to focus on Krishna who was there present in front of him. And then here it is explained that Krishna assumed a four-handed form and Bhishmadev starts to focus. So Prabhupada in the purport basically quotes Bhagavad Gita 8.5 till 15. The 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains how a person should leave one's body. And then Lord Krishna explains the series of verses. Antakale chamameva smaran muktva kalevaram. One should remember me at the time of death, like that. So Bhishmadev, he's showing through his own example how when that final moment comes, one should stop thinking about anything else and start to focus completely on Krishna. So Bhishmadev focuses on Krishna completely. And then from text 31-32, Bhishmadev starts his prayer. We'll read text 31 also. Vishuddha dharanaya hatashubhas tad ikshayvashu gata yuddha shrama nivritta sarvendriya vritti vibramas tushtava janayam visrajam janardanam. Vishuddhaya dharanaya. Dharanaya means meditation. Patanjali in his Ashtanga Yoga explains one of the limbs of Ashtanga Yoga is dharana, to hold that Supreme Lord. Vishuddhaya is purified meditation. So there may be meditation, but Bhishmadev is in a very purified meditation and is looking at Krishna. And as soon as he looks at Krishna, what happens? Hata Ashubha. As soon as he looks at Krishna, all the inauspiciousness is gone. He forgets all the pain that the arrows are causing him. That means basically Bhishmadev becomes completely transcendental. He's not left his body, but he's already beyond the body. The body is no longer affecting him at all. And then he starts to prepare himself and he starts to offer very beautiful sets of prayers to Krishna. So this section 32 to 43, almost like 11 verses, 12 verses, these are the prayers Bhishmadev is offering at his final moment. These are the final words of Bhishmadev. Now he's not looking at the Pandavas, he's not looking at anyone. He's only looking at Krishna. And the last few prayers he offers to Krishna and then departs. Very beautiful section. Text 32. Shri Bhishma Uvacha Iti Matir Upakalpita Vitrishna Bhagavati Satvata Pungave Vibhumni Swasukam Upagate Kvachit Viharatum Prakritim Upeyushi Yad Bhava Pravaha. So Bhishmadev is praying, my dear Lord, iti matir, let me invest my thinking, feeling, willing. So Prabhupada many times mentions Atma, spirit has three functions: to think, to feel emotions and to desire. So Bhishmadev wants to invest his thoughts, his emotions and his desires in Krishna. Iti matir upakalpita vitrishna. Vitrishna means freed from sense desire. Free from all desires. What does he want to do? Bhagavati satvata pungave. He is saying, my dear Lord, I have been thinking about different subject matters because Bhishmadev was a very important politician. He had like a very big responsibility. So all this while in his life, his minds were absorbed in the fights in the family and so many things he had in his mind. So Bhishma Dev is praying to the Lord, my dear Lord, that's the end of everything. I don't want to focus on anything. Now I want to focus only on you. And Krishna, Bhishma Dev is describing Krishna. Each of the adjectives, each of the qualities that Bhishma Dev is describing is something that's very important for us to meditate on. Bhagavati is the Supreme Person of Godhead. Satvata Pungave. Satvata Pungave means the leader of the devotees. Who is Krishna? Krishna is the leader of the devotees. So the devotees are called Sattvatas. And Krishna is Satvata Pungave. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport, we don't have time to read the purports, but Prabhupada's purports are very beautiful. So Prabhupada mentions here, Krishna was the leader of the Pandavas. The Pandavas were the best devotees. Krishna was the leader. Similarly, when the Lord came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became the leader of the devotees. So Krishna is glorified here as the leader of the devotees. And then Vibhumni means, Vibhu means basically Krishna who is very powerful, great. Vibhumni means that Supreme Person of Godhead who has lot of opulences. So Bhishma Dev wants to focus on Krishna, is glorifying Krishna as the all-powerful and also as self-satisfied, Swasukam. And even though Krishna is self-satisfied, he still descends in this world. Why? To increase the pleasure of his devotees. That's the only reason that Krishna comes. Even though he doesn't have to come to this world, he comes to increase that pleasure of the devotees. So Prabhupada mentions here in the purport that there's a difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. The Lord doesn't become the leader of the non-devotees. The Lord becomes the leader of the devotees because the devotees are ready to follow the instructions of the Lord. In this way, Prabhupada mentions here that how Krishna is the source of even Narayan and all the avatars, and Krishna comes in this world specifically to enliven his devotees. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord explains 3 reasons why he comes. One is to protect devotees, one is to kill demons, to establish dharma. But the most important is Krishna comes to have relationship with the devotees. And then in the next verse, he prays to Lord Krishna, text 33. Tribhuvana kamanam tamalavarnam Ravikara Gauravara Ambaram Dadhane Vapuralaka Kulavritanabjam Vijaya Saket Rati Astu Me Navadhya. Vijaya Sake Rati Astu Me Navadhya. Rati is attraction. Let my attraction be towards Krishna. And who is this Krishna? Vijaya Sake. Vijaya is one of the name of Arjuna. Vijaya Sake, the friend of Arjuna. You see, Arjuna is very junior to Bhishma Dev. But Bhishma Dev is not feeling envious of Arjuna. He is not thinking that Arey, Krishna is with Arjuna more. In fact, Bhishma Dev is glorifying Krishna as someone who is dear to Arjuna. So, we are reading Bhishma Dev's prayers also. We are also seeing the qualities of Bhishma Dev. We saw in one of the verses before, Bhishma Dev is very humble. He is not sure whether he is going back to the spiritual world. Here we are seeing his non-envious nature. Arjuna is like a kid in front of Bhishma Dev. He is the one who brought him up. But he is so happy to see that Arjuna is getting more mercy. So a devotee means when he sees other devotees getting more mercy, that devotee becomes very, very happy. So Bhishma Dev is glorifying Krishna as Krishna who is the friend of Arjuna. And Prabhupada mentions here that the best way to glorify Krishna is when you glorify Krishna in connection with his devotees. Krishna becomes more happy when he is connected and glorified in connection with the devotees. So in this way he is glorifying Krishna. And then he is meditating on Krishna's beauty. Tribhuvana kamanam tamala varnam. Krishna's beauty, Krishna's form is desired by everyone in this world. Everyone wants to look at Krishna. And Krishna is tamala varnam. There's a tree called tamala tree which is blackish in color. So Krishna is dark blackish in color. And that dark Krishna is wearing a shining yellow dhoti. Ravikara Gaura Vara Ambaram Dadhane. So in this way, and Krishna has a very beautiful lotus face, curly hair. So Bhishma Deva is glorifying Krishna like this. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, so there are different rasas in which one can have a relationship with Krishna. Bhishma Dev is in Sakya rasa, and more specifically he is in Virya rasa. We will see that. So Bhishma Dev is a warrior and he is meditating on Krishna in the mood of a warrior. That's his worshipable Lord. So as we read the verses ahead, it will become very clear who is Bhishma Dev's worshipable Lord. This worshipable Lord is called Ishta, right? So for everyone there is some favorite deity, favorite form. For someone it may be Ram, for someone it may be Krishna, for someone it may be Narasimha, like that. Text 34. So basically in 33, what did he pray? He is praying that, my dear Lord, let my attraction be towards your form. Now you see in text 34, each of these prayers you will see one focus of Bhishma Dev. He is praying again and again. It's almost like a repeated prayer. My dear Lord, let my mind think of you, let my attraction be towards you. Text 34. Yuditar go rajo vidumra vishwa Kuchalulita Shrimavari Alankritashe Mama Nishita Sharir Vividyamana Tvachi Vilas Kavaches tu Krishna Atma. So this Krishna, who is the friend of Arjuna, when Krishna was there on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna's hair became dusty. That beautiful hair of Krishna became dusty. Because on a battlefield there is dust everywhere. Horses are moving, there's dust everywhere. So Krishna's hair became dusty. His entire body became dusty. And Krishna has sweat on his body. And not only that, Krishna has dust, sweat, and Bhishma Dev was shooting at Krishna. Because they were in a warrior mode, he was shooting at Krishna. And Krishna's body was wounded with Bhishma Dev's arrows, and blood also was coming out. And Bhishma Dev is meditating on this beautiful form. So generally, someone has sweat, blood, perspiration. No one looks beautiful, but Krishna is all the more beautiful with all this. And then Prabhupada mentions here that the arrows that Bhishma Dev was shooting at Krishna, Krishna was accepting with great love and affection. So Prabhupada says here, bhakti is a very dynamic process. Someone may offer a flower to Krishna, but if it's not offered with devotion, Krishna doesn't accept it. But someone may shoot an arrow at Krishna, but if it's with love and devotion, Krishna accepts it. So what Krishna is looking for is pure bhakti, right? So those arrows of Bhishma Dev was Bhishma Dev's way of showering love to Krishna, and Krishna accepted that. So Prabhupada mentions here, sometimes Krishna, he becomes very happy when the devotees chastise him, or like devotees like Bhishma Dev even throw arrows at him. Krishna becomes very happy because all this is done with pure love. Just like in Vrindavan, Yashoda tied Krishna, the gopis would chastise Krishna, but Krishna took it in great spirit. So similarly, Bhishma Dev's, this is a kind of reciprocation of love. Just like Krishna and the gopis who had a rasa, Ras Leela. So when we hear the word Ras Leela, what is Ras Leela? We generally think that Ras Leela means Krishna with the gopis. But Ras Leela means the dance of love between God and his devotees. The reciprocation of love. So here also there's a Ras Leela going on. Outside people think that what's going on here? Bhishma Dev is shooting, what kind of devotee? But Prabhupada says here, the non-devotees will never understand this. Only devotees can penetrate into this mystery. What is exactly happening between Bhishma and Lord Krishna. So in this way, the Lord enjoyed the wounds of Bhishma Dev because the Bhishma Dev was a devotee in chivalrous relation and his mind was fixed on Krishna. So Bhishma Dev is remembering that form. So basically, these are the last moments of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev is remembering all the highlights of his life. That's what happens when someone is passing away. And all the highlights of his life are centered on Krishna. He said, remembering each of these pastimes and relishing it. So basically in 34 also he is praying, let my mind let my mind be fixed on this Krishna who is there as Parsarthi in the battlefield. Text 35. Sapati Saki Vacho Nishamya Madhye Nija Pranayo Parayor Balayoratam Niveshya Stitavati Para Shainikayur Akshna Ritavati Partha Sake Ratir Mamastu. Basically, you are seeing the constant prayer. Ritavati Partha Sake Rati Mamastu. Let my attraction be towards Partha Sake Krishna. And he's saying here, this Krishna, just by being in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna didn't lift any weapons, but just by being there and looking at the Kauravas, Krishna reduced their lifespan. Now Duryodhana didn't understand this logic. What will Krishna do without weapons? But Krishna, just by looking at them, he reduced all their lifespans. And then he says, let this Krishna be the object of my worship. So this is what Bhishma Dev is meditating on. So Prabhupada mentions here that whatever the Lord does for the good for everyone. So it is explained that, we will see in the verse ahead, Krishna was definitely merciful to Arjuna and the Pandavas, but Krishna was also merciful to the Kauravas. Because anyone who died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, seeing Krishna, all of them entered into the spiritual world. So in one sense, the Kauravas were more, they had more special mercy than the Pandavas. Because the Kauravas were actually seeing Krishna from the front. The Pandavas were seeing Krishna's back, they were actually seeing Krishna's front, So in this way, Prabhupada mentions here, the Lord does no bad in any circumstance. Whatever the Lord does for everyone, it's for the ultimate good. Text 36. Vyavahita pratana mukam nirikshya swajana vadat vimukasya dosha buddhya kumatim aharad atma vidyayayash charanarati paramasya tasya mestu charanarati paramasya tasya mestu. Let my attraction be towards Krishna's lotus feet. The same theme coming up. He is remembering different pastimes, but his prayer is one. Let my mind be on Krishna. Man mana bhava mad bhakto. So he's saying, he's thinking here, and Bhishma Dev is mentioning here, he's remembering that pastime and is speaking here, that when Arjuna was bewildered because of ignorance in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and why was Arjuna having this ignorance? Swajana vadhat, because Arjuna was confused, should I kill my own relatives? That time what did Lord Krishna do? Atma Vidyaya. Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. So he's remembering that incident, how on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to remove the kumati, the distracted, poor fund of knowledge of Arjuna, tosha buddhya, polluted intelligence of Arjuna. So let my mind be fixed on Krishna, who is the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada mentions the setting of the Bhagavad Gita scene, that both the armies were set, conch shells were blown, Arjuna was confused, he told Krishna, take the chariot and between both the armies, and then Krishna started to speak Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada mentions here that Arjuna's intelligence was covered by Krishna, so that through Arjuna we can get Atma Vidyaya, the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Text 37. Swanimagnam apaya mat pratigyam ratam adhikartum avaplute ratasta dhritarata charano vyaya chaladgur havirivahantum ibam gatoriya. So this particular scene is the highlight in Bhishma Dev's life. This was the highlight. So on one particular day of the war, during the 18 days of war, probably 8th day, 9th day, because Bhishma Dev was on the battlefield only for 10 days. 10th day he was injured. So one of the days Duryodhan starts to chastise Bhishma Dev a lot, that you are favoring the Pandavas, you are not doing your best. So Bhishma Dev takes a vow that tomorrow morning with these 5 arrows I'm going to kill the 5 Pandavas. And Duryodhan was very happy. He takes those arrows and then he goes to sleep. So Lord Krishna sends Arjuna to the camp of Duryodhan and tells Arjuna, please ask those arrows. Because long back when the Pandavas were in the forest, Duryodhan had come to do a picnic where the Pandavas were, and Duryodhan was caught by the Gandharvas. And that time Arjuna went and saved the life of Duryodhan. So that time Duryodhan said, when the time comes, you can ask anything from me. So Lord Krishna sends Arjuna and tells him, now time has come, please ask those arrows. So Arjuna gets those arrows back. So next day in the morning, Bhishma Dev is asking Duryodhan where the arrows are. Duryodhan says it's gone, Arjuna has taken it. So Bhishma Dev understands that this is Krishna who has done it. So Bhishma Dev, he makes a vow that because of Krishna, I will not be able to fulfill my vow today of killing the Pandavas. So Bhishma Dev says, I'm going to fight in such a way, only 2 things will happen. 1, Arjuna will die, or 2nd, Krishna will have to break his promise. And what was Krishna's promise? That he will not lift any weapons. So that day, Bhishma fought with such power, and Arjuna was not able to fight back. So that time Krishna, in order to protect Arjuna, Krishna forgot his promise, sacrificing his own promise in order to save his friend and in order to fulfill the desire of Bhishma Dev. What is the desire of Bhishma Dev? That I will make Krishna break his promise. So Krishna took that chariot wheel and ran towards Bhishma Dev to kill Bhishma. And Krishna was so much absorbed in killing Bhishma, his uttari that was there on top of his body, that fell off. And Bhishma Dev is remembering this scene. And when Krishna was coming to kill Bhishma Dev put all these weapons down and he was ready to die in the hands of Krishna. But right at the time the sun sets and the day war ends there. So, but that scene became like a highlight for Bhishma Dev. He really was so grateful, that Krishna is coming to deliver me. So this is that scene that Bhishma Dev is remembering here. So Prabhupada mentions this, that whole pastime, that I spoke now. And Prabhupada mentions that how Krishna is more concerned with protecting his devotees than saving his image of keeping promises and all that. There's a difference between Krishna and Ram, right? Lord Ram was more interested in keeping his image. He sacrificed his devotees, he sent Sita also. But Krishna is the other way around. Krishna doesn't care for image. For him the most important is to protect his devotees, right? So Krishna just gave up his vow and was ready to protect Arjuna. Text 38. Shita Vishika Hato Vishirnadam Sham Shataja Paripluta Attayino Me Prashabam Abhisar Madvyadhartam Sabhavatu Me Bhagavan Gatir Mukunda Sabhavatu Me Bhagavan Gatir Mukunda. Let that Krishna, who is Mukunda, one who gives salvation, be the ultimate destination, the object of my worship. And then Bhishma Dev is meditating here that on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he charged at me and Krishna's body, it was smeared with arrows, blood, perspiration and everything. And Krishna was looking very, very beautiful like this. So Prabhupada mentions here that the dealings between Krishna and Bhishma Dev are interesting because externally it appears to be, they are against each other, but actually Krishna is showing a special favor for Bhishma Dev because Bhishma Dev wanted to see Krishna in this Virya Rasa. So this was an exchange of love that was going on. So in this way Prabhupada says, with this kind of exchange, the Lord also gets glorified and his pure devotee also gets glorified. The same point that Prabhupada is trying to make, that this was an exchange of Virya Rasa between Krishna and the pure devotee Bhishma Dev. Text 39. Vijayarata Kutumba Atatotre Dhrutahaya Rashmini Tachikirshaniye Bhagavatir Ratir Astu Me Mumurshor Yamhiya Niriksha Hatagata Swarupam Bhagavatir Ratir Astu Me Mumurshor. Mumurshor means at the time of death, let my attraction be towards Krishna Bhagavan. And he's saying, Vijayarata Kutumba Atatotre. This Krishna, who is Bhagavan, he was in the chariot of Arjuna with a whip in one hand and the bridle, the rope tying the horses in the other hand. This is Krishna, Bhagavan, doing a menial service for his devotee Arjuna. And he was so careful to protect Arjuna. Krishna was very, very careful how to maneuver the chariot. And then Bhishma Dev says, this Krishna, whoever saw Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all of them attained the spiritual world. So this is the statement here where Bhishma Dev is trying to prove that Krishna has given liberation to everyone. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport that the yogis try to follow the Ashtanga Yoga and then finally they try to come to the level of Samadhi. So it's a very mechanical process, a difficult process. But Prabhupada says here, a devotee easily attains that stage of Samadhi by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Bhishma Dev, he was like a regular warrior. He didn't go to yoga, he didn't go to the Himalayas, nothing. But the kind of Samadhi that he had is much more superior than even the yogis. That's why all the rishis have come here to offer respects to Bhishma. So Prabhupada mentions here, a devotee easily, spontaneously attains the last final stage of Samadhi by the practice of Bhakti Yoga. And then Prabhupada mentions that Krishna's each form is an eternal form. Partha Sarthi. What is Partha Sarthi? Krishna was the chariot driver of Arjuna. This is an eternal form because Krishna Leela is going on some way or the other. So Bhishma Dev is meditating on Partha Sarthi feature. And Bhishma Dev, after his departure, he enters into the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there are unlimited Vaikuntha Lokas. And in one of the Vaikuntha Lokas, the Lord is there as Parasarthi. That's where Bhishma Dev goes to. So that's what Prabhupada explains here. And then Prabhupada mentions how anyone who died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they all attained that spiritual world. Because Krishna is so good, so compassionate that anyone who sees Krishna in any form, in any way, whether in a favorable way, unfavorable way, all of them attain that supreme destination. Text 40. Now Bhishma Dev, he is meditating on Vrindavan Dham and the love of the gopis. Text 40. Lalita Gati Vilasa Valguhasa Pranaya Nirikshana Kalpito Rumana Kritamanu Kritavatya Unmad Anda Prakritim Maghan Kila Yasya Gopavadva. Let my mind be fixed on Krishna, whose motions and smile, whose activities attracted the gopis. And these gopis, when Krishna did Ras Leela, and in between the Ras Leela, Krishna disappeared, these gopis became so mad, Unmad Andaha. They became so mad, they started to imitate Krishna's pastimes of Krishna killing Kaliya and all that. So here, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Bhishma Dev was such a powerful warrior. No mention in Mahabharata that Bhishma Dev went to Vrindavan Dham. No mention. But Bhishma Dev's object of worship, his worshipable devotees are the gopis of Vrindavan. So Prabhupada mentions here, in his final moment, Bhishma Dev, the reason he is mentioning the gopis here is, in his final moment, he wants to seek blessings of the gopis. Please bless me that I can enter into the spiritual world. So that is the status of the gopis. So Prabhupada mentions here, see, more fortunate than Bhishma was Arjuna, because Arjuna was like a constant friend of Krishna. But more fortunate than Arjuna was the gopis, because the gopis had equal footing with Krishna. They would embrace Krishna. Arjuna could never do that. They would embrace Krishna, kiss Krishna. They had such beautiful intimate relationships. So it was almost they were on an equal footing with Krishna. So therefore, their love for Krishna is unparalleled, and Bhishma Dev is glorifying them, and Bhishma Dev is seeking their mercy, their blessings in his final moment. So this is the mood of Bhishma Dev. Text 41. Munigana Nripa Varya Sankulentaha Sadasi Yudhishthira Rajasuya Esham Arhanam Upapeda Ikshaniyo Mamadrishi Gochara Esha Aviratma. So Bhishma Dev is remembering another very important episode in his life at the Rajasuya Yagya. So Yudhishthira did a Rajasuya Yagya. To do a Rajasuya Yagya is not easy. Someone who is doing a Rajasuya Yagya, he has to be accepted as the Samrat, the undisputed emperor by all the small kings in the world. And Yudhishthira was accepted. So in this Rajasuya Yagya, one of the first aspects of the Rajasuya Yagya is the first argya, the first puja is given to the most respectable person. And in this Rajasuya Yagya, Yudhishthira invited all the kings of the world. He invited all the rishis. He invited all the devatas also. Indra, Chandra, Shiva, Brahma, everyone came there. And the discussion was, who should be given the first argya puja? Who should be given the first argya puja? All the rishis and Bhishma Dev most emphatically said, there is only one person who is the most worshipable, that is Krishna. And Krishna was given that first argya puja. So why did Yudhishthira do the Rajasuya Yagya? Krishna told Yudhishthira to do the Rajasuya Yagya because Krishna wanted to glorify Yudhishthira. But Yudhishthira agreed to do it because Yudhishthira understood that by doing this, Krishna's glories will become spread everywhere. So therefore, it was his preaching mood. So Bhishma Dev says, in my presence, in the Rajasuya Yagya, Krishna was glorified as the greatest. I am remembering that scene now. So these were like highlights in Bhishma Dev's life. Okay, so now text 42. Tamyam aham ajam sharira bhaja Ridhi ridhi dishtitam atma kalpitanam Pratidrisham iva naikardakam ekam Samadhikato asmin vibhuta bheda moha. So he's saying here, now I meditate with full concentration on that Lord who is present before me, because I have transcended the conception of duality. Vidhuta bheda moha. Bheda moha means the misconception that things are disconnected from Krishna. Bheda means divided. The problem with all of us is that we think that this world is separate from Krishna. When all illusion is gone, you will understand that everything is energy of Krishna. You will see Krishna everywhere. You will not see material and spiritual. You will see spiritual everywhere. So Bhishma Dev had reached that stage where he was completely Krishna conscious. Wherever you would see, you would just see Krishna. Just like Prahlad, you would see Krishna everywhere, because that Bheda Moha was gone. So Bhishma Dev basically transcended all barriers, and he understood that everything is Krishnamai. Just like Brahma Samhita says, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. Anyone who has pure love, he can see Krishna everywhere. So basically the idea is, Bhishma Dev, all his illusions, all his attachments, the false ego, everything was completely destroyed at this point because of his focus on Krishna. And Bhishma Dev departs. And then Prabhupada mentions here, Bhishma Dev enters into that spiritual world where the Lord is there eternally as Parthasarathi. Text 43. Suta uvacha Krishna evam bhagavati manovag drishti vrittibhi atmani atmanam avishya so anta swaha uparamat. Thus Bhishma Dev, seeing Krishna, speaking about Krishna, in the presence of Krishna's devotees, Bhishma Dev stopped speaking. He became silent and his soul left. So here it says, Krishna evam Bhagavati, Krishna was that supreme person of Godhead, Manovag Drishti Vrittibi. Bhishma Dev invested his mind, Vag is words, Drishti is eyes, Vrittibi is all your emotions, activities, everything dovetailed in Krishna. Mind, speech, sight, actions. And then he stopped speaking and entered into the spiritual world. So Prabhupada mentions here, this kind of samadhi is called nirvikalpa samadhi. What does nirvikalpa samadhi means? In one sense, Bhishma Dev merged into the Lord. But what does merged into the Lord mean? It's not that he lost it, he lost his existence. His activities, his sight, everything became focused on Krishna. All his senses became completely Krishna conscious. Yeah, Krishna took over all his senses. And then Prabhupada mentions here, please read this. I'm reading this sentence here, please hear this. This is the highest stage of perfection. What is the highest stage of perfection? Nirvikalpa samadhi, yeah. All your senses absorbed in Krishna fully. You don't think about anyone but only about Krishna. You don't see anyone but only Krishna. You don't hear anyone but only Krishna. So Krishna takes over fully. This is the highest stage. And the Prabhupada says, this highest stage of perfection, it's possible for everyone to attain by practice of devotional service. So it's not that only Bhishma Dev attained. Everyone can attain this if you practice devotional service. And what is devotional service? Prabhupada mentions 9 limbs. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam. One of them, all of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, anything will do. But Prabhupada says of all, the first hearing is very, very important. So Prabhupada says here, a serious candidate, someone who's serious to go back to the spiritual world, first should hear Gita properly and then hear Bhagavatam. If you read Gita Bhagavatam properly, then you will go back. And then Prabhupada says here, someone may say that Krishna was personally present before Bhishma Dev, not before me. But Prabhupada is mentioning here, Krishna and Krishna's sound incarnation are non-different. If you are there in touch with Krishna's words, with Krishna's holy name, you are there with Krishna. So this is how Bhishma Dev departs. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevram. Only thinking of Krishna. And Prabhupada mentions here, every man and animal must die at a certain stage. But one who dies like Bhishma Dev attains perfection. And one who dies by the laws of nature dies like an animal. And Prabhupada says the difference between a human and animal is human beings are meant to die like Bhishma Dev. So Bhishma Dev has said that great example of a great departure, the departure that people can just dream of and pray of. Text 44 to 49. So now after Bhishma Dev's departure, what happens? Now Bhishma Dev has passed away. Text 44. Sampadyamanam Ajnaya Bhishmam Brahmani Nishkale Sarve Bhavuste Tushnim Vaya Vimsha Dinatyaye. Knowing that Bhishma Dev had attained that supreme, all became silent. This was like a very emotional time. Just like at the end of the day, the birds stopped singing, chirping. Everyone became silent. So similarly, Bhishma Dev, feeling the separation of Bhishma Dev, everyone was so silent there. So Prabhupada mentions here that there are 3 kinds of spiritualists. Jnanis, yogis, bhaktas. Jnanis want to merge into Brahman. Yogis want to attain Paramatma. But the bhaktas want to attain Krishna in the spiritual world. So Bhishma Dev was not a Jnani, Bhishma Dev was not a yogi, but Bhishma Dev was a bhakta, the topmost devotee. And then Prabhupada mentions here, Bhishma Dev entered into the spiritual world where Parsarthi predominates. Like that. Text 45. Tatra dundu bayo nedo Deva manava vadata Samshushu Shashamshu sadhavo ragyam Kharpetu pushpa vrishnaya. And there was silence And after the silence, there was a celebration. बोलेंगे celebration किसके लिए? I mean, someone has died. Why are you celebrating? Because this is a great death, not an ordinary death. This is a great death. This person has conquered the cycle of birth and death. It's a great death. So all the men demigods, in great honor, they started to play dundu boyo nedu, different instruments to celebrate this. And there was flowers from the sky on Bhishma Dev's departure. So Prabhupada mentions here, Bhishma Dev, even though a human being, he was respected even by the demigods. So this is a Mahajan. He was on par with Brahma, Narad and others. And Bhishma Dev was known all over the world. And then Prabhupada mentions here, the word Jayanti. You use this word Jayanti when you apply this word Jayanti to that Supreme Lord or to great pure devotees who have conquered the cycle of birth and death. Not to ordinary people. Jayanti means you should have conquered the cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, the word Jayanti is never used. Right? So Bhishma Dev in one sense was victorious because he conquered the cycle of birth and death. And this is something to be glorified. So in our line, the Vaishnavas, the pure devotees, their appearance is also celebrated, their disappearance is also celebrated. Chaitanya Charitamrita explains when Haridas Thakur left his body, similarly, exactly like Bhishma Dev, in the presence of the Lord, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the presence of devotees. After his departure, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally arranged a big festival for the departure of Haridas Thakur because such a great personality has gone into the spiritual world. Text 46. Tasya nirahara nadini sampretasya bhargava yudhishthira kartayitva muhurtam dukkito bhavat. After that, Yudhishthir was momentarily overtaken by grief because Prabhupada mentions here Bhishma Dev was a very important personality in their life. So Bhishma Dev was their well-wisher, grandfather, friend, philosopher, everything for the Pandavas. They never saw their father literally. So it was only Bhishma Dev who did all this role. So now with the passing away of Bhishma Dev, it was like a lot of separation, a lot of vacuum in their life. So Yudhishthir, what does Yudhishthir mean? Yudhishthir means one who's very, very steady. This Yudhishthir overcame by grief. He was so affected. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meets Ramananda Rai, they have a lot of discussions. Mahaprabhu is asking questions and Ramananda Rai is answering. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking one question to Ramananda Rai, what is the greatest sorrow? And Ramananda Rai says, separation from devotees is the greatest sorrow. So Yudhishthira is feeling a lot of separation from Bhishma Dev and is remembering all the wonderful instances of love and affection that Bhishma Dev showered. So Yudhishthira becomes overcome by grief momentarily, but Yudhishthira also performs the final rites of Bhishma Dev. Hear this, Prabhupada is saying here, Bhishma Dev didn't get married, so he didn't have children. So the only one who was supposed to do this was Yudhishthira, the eldest left now, right, in the family. So Yudhishthira does it. So Prabhupada is saying here, it was a great boon to Bhishma Dev that an equally great son of the family undertook the final rites of a great man. Bhishma Dev was a great person, and the one who is doing the final rites is also a great person. So this is Pandav line where the legacy of greatness is continuing, right? So in this way, Yudhishthira performs the final rites. Text 47. Tustuvur munayorishta Krishnam tadguya namabi Tataste Krishna hridaya Swashraman prayayo puna. So during the departure of Bhishma Dev, all the sages were there. So all these sages, for almost like 30-40 days, Bhishma Dev is giving his discussion. So they came, they waited till Bhishma Dev departed. They cancelled all their programs. They were like very, very powerful people. They cancelled everything, waited for the departure of this great soul. And after the final rites, they all go back to their own abodes. And how do they go back? They glorify Krishna and they carry Krishna in their hearts and go back to their own ashramas. So this is what the great souls are teaching us, that you get inspired in the presence of Krishna, carry Krishna and then go back. So when you go to a holy dham, you get those inspirations, you get those holy sights, carry it in your heart and take Krishna with you. So Prabhupada mentions here that the devotees, in the heart of the devotees, Krishna is there, and in the heart of Krishna, his devotees are there. This is the sweet relation between both of them. Text 48. Tato yudhishthiro gatva sah krishno gajavyayam pitaram santavyam asha gandharim cha tapasvinim. So now, see, for the Pandavas, it's been painful episodes after another, right? In the war itself, it was like a gambling, huge gambling. They lost so many of their children, Abhimanyu, so many children killed. After the war, their 5 sons slaughtered by Ashwatthama. Now Bhishma Dev passing away. Loss after loss for the Pandavas. But Yudhishthira still gains himself, whatever strength he had, whatever inspiration he got from Bhishma Dev. He goes back to his capital, Hastinapur, accompanied by Lord Krishna. And there, what he does, he goes and consoles Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Why? Because Prabhupada writes in the purport, even though Dhritarashtra was the cause of all sorrow for Pandavas, not for 1 year, 2 years, for a long period, right from their childhood, Dhritarashtra has been the root of all evil. But this is Yudhishthira, right? Completely forgiving, accepting. So Yudhishthira is thinking, now this old couple, Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, all their sons dead, all their grandsons dead. So for Kauravas, it was the entire family finished. Not one, at least for the Pandavas, Parikshit was left. Here, everyone gone. And they were already in pain seeing all the sons dead, all the grandsons dead, and now they are living at the cost of Yudhishthira. So Yudhishthira was Prabhupada mentions here, he was very conscious of his duty. He understood that I have to give some pacification to them. So he goes and meets them. So he and Lord Krishna, both of them, convince and pacify Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Like that. Text 49, the last verse. Pitara chamu mato raja vasudeva numodita chakara ragyam dharmena pita mahan vibhu. After this, the great religious king Maharaj Yudhishthira executed the royal power in the kingdom strictly according to the codes and royal principles approved by his uncle and confirmed by Lord Krishna. Who this uncle refers to? No, Bhishma Dev is gone. This uncle here refers to Dhritarashtra. So this was Yudhishthira. He is the king. But before he would make a decision, he would go and show it to Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra has no power now. And he's the one who's caused everything, but this is the kind of respect that is there ingrained in this person. Yudhishthira would go and tell Dhritarashtra, is this okay? Is your blessings there? And then he would confirm it with Lord Krishna and then rule. And then, pass on that ruling. So this was a king like Yudhishthira. So Prabhupada mentions here, Yudhishthira was not like a mere tax collector. He was like a king, was no less than a father and a spiritual master for the citizens. And a king means who's thinking of the overall welfare, social, political, economic and spiritual welfare for the citizen. And Prabhupada mentions here, most important, the king should know how to deliver people from the cycle of birth and death. Right. So in this way, this particular chapter, the passing away of Bhishma Dev, ends here. So basically, we saw in this chapter that how Bhishma Dev offers his prayers. I'm not getting into details. He explains Yudhishthira the various philosophy, convinces Yudhishthira, gives pacification to Yudhishthira and then passes away. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. We